Well, let's talk about, speaking of crummy, you never think that things can get worse with the Knicks, and somehow James Dolan has found a way to tick off Knicks fans all around the country, particularly one down here in Sarasota, Florida, bringing back Isaiah Thomas as, I guess, a quote consultant. I can't believe that he's even thinking about it. I don't know if it's official yet, but what's the reaction up there in New York?
Well, I think it's official as far as the Knicks are concerned. I don't think it's official as far as the league is concerned. I know that we refer repeatedly to Phil Mushnick's column in the New York Post, and he has a big column on that particular item today in today's New York Post. But there are also several other notes saying that, first of all, the legality of Mr. Dolan being able to sign Isaiah Thomas is very much in question because, as you know, he's still going to remain a college basketball coach, and there are all kinds of rules and regulations now about seeing any type of high school players except in all-star playoff competition and chatting with them or being in contact with, or college players being in contact with any type of agents or representatives of the National Basketball Association. So I just happen to think that that's never going to happen. I don't think the league, and there's several owners now that have already registered some complaints. So I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't think Mr. Dolan can say whatever he wants to, but I don't think he's going to be able to hire Isaiah Thomas as a consultant for the New York Knicks. And I can't imagine Madison Square Garden or anybody else. Here's a man that was discharged for sexual harassment, and the Garden had to pay $11 million to settle the case, and maybe even more. I don't know. That was what we reported, I think, $11.5 million to settle the case because there was more than one person that complained. And how in the world this man could even think? I mean, how could any corporation, I don't care what it's basketball, and they have so many heads in the ground to begin with about crime, how could you ever hire a guy like that who you lost $11.5 million in a suit and bring him back to the team? I can't imagine.
Yeah, I can't figure it out. When I read the story online the other day, it had a quote, at least this is the way it was written, that Donnie Walsh was also behind it. But then I hear today that Donnie Walsh threatened to quit over this.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that. I'm not so sure he's not going to quit if it went through. I'm not so sure he's not going to quit anyway.
But I don't see how can you coexist that way when your owner brings in a guy that has not only ruined the Knicks, he ruined the CBA, he ruined pretty much Toronto when he was up there, did not do a great job with Indiana with the Pacers. I know G-Man, you can chime in on that if you want on the chat box. And everywhere he's gone has been a disaster as either a coach or an executive.
Yeah, I just can't imagine how, but as I say, forget his failures as a basketball manager and coach. His personal conduct. I mean, how can first of all, how could a college even hire him as a coach? I mean, I can't imagine how a president of a college or university, when his name is even put up for hiring, how could you hire a guy like this? It makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever.
And the conflict of interest situation we talked about before we went on, Don. I mean, it's probably not going to happen now, but let's say it did go through. How do you have a college coach who's dealing with not only college players, but potential high school or definitely high school players now? And that's conflict of interest right there. I mean, how do you even allow that?
Well, I think that's the grounds that the NBA and David Stern are. I think that they'll definitely take some action in that regard. I don't think they can allow this to happen. I mean, you just can't have a guy that's working as a consultant for a pro team and not supposed to be in contact with, college basketball players, and he's coaching a college basketball team and going to see high school players, in his spare time. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. It's against every rule of conduct you have.
And G-Man says, let's see. He should quit the college job, G-Man says, and as a Bobby Knight championship player, his past with Indiana, he can do no wrong. Just kidding, yeah. Even in Indiana, they don't like him anymore.
Well, I'm not going to take anything away from his basketball talent. He was a great basketball player at Indiana for Bobby Knight. He was an outstanding basketball player for Chuck Daly and the Detroit Pistons. I'm not going to take anything away from his basketball skills. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? All those kind of things are all fine. But this is completely separate from that. This is a code of conduct. This is something that I don't understand the college basketball team hiring in the beginning. And I certainly don't understand how they could possibly bring him back to Madison Square Garden. And really, that's the thrust. I don't know if you, well, I should say I do know because we chatted about it. You didn't have a chance to read Phil today. But basically, the whole column, the main part of the column is about how New York is chump treatment is what the headline of the column is. And it talks about Dolan. It talks about the Mets. It talks about, what's going on in the New York Mets situation. Really, New York right now is in a bad way between the Knicks and certainly the New York Mets, who are dead in the water.
You got to wonder when eventually saner head's going to prevail with James Dolan. I mean, he was always kind of known as the black sheep of that family, which owns Cablevision. That's how they made all their money, and they bought the Garden a few years ago. I guess more than a few now. But he's the guy they gave that toy to run those two franchises, the Knicks and the Rangers, and he just does a terrible job with it. But nobody's going to get him out of there, I guess, unless is the father still around? I don't know who's in charge of the
I think the father is still around, but his hirings have just been a disaster, as have the New York Mets. I mean, Omar Minaya is the general manager of the New York Mets. It's an absolute disgrace. I mean, there's no way in the world that man, he's hired two managers, Willie Randolph, and now we're in a situation here with the New York Mets where they're selling tickets for these outrageous prices, and I'll tell you, it's going to be a disaster in September. There's not going to be anybody at Citi Field, at least in my view. I should say there's not going to be anybody there, but I'd be surprised if they can draw any type of crowds in late August and September with the team that they're putting on the field.
Yeah, Manaya's going to blame Manuel first, so that'll try and save his job that way. I don't see although I said it last year and the year before when the Mets collapsed, how did Manaya keep his job then? But I can't see him staying on after this year. Do you?
No, Fred Wilpon's already said. He came out last Friday and said that there will be no changes, that the manager and the general manager will remain in place for at least, he's got 2 more years on his contract. And he came out last Friday and said, there's not going to be any changes. Well, how can there not be any changes? First of all, there's all the rumors about can he spend money to get more players? Can he spend money to get more players? I don't know enough about his financial situation to make any comment about that. All I know is for the last year and a half, at the trading deadline, in the off season, and now, he's done nothing. They brought players up. Everybody that they bring up is they've gotten lucky with some players, but they're not. One guy's 35 years old. You're not talking about going out and getting representative players to compete in the division in the National League. You just can't do it.